We present a community engagement proposal which focuses primarily on the need to inform people about the rules and regulations of the UK planning framework, with secondary attention to site specificity and local context. We aim to develop tools that can help people to navigate the complexity of the legislation. These tools try to bridge the gap from layman language to complex legislative jargon in a series of layers, each one the more accessible and engaging. The central government has long hoarded and centralized power in the areas of planning and construction. In cooperation with external developers, profit-oriented extractive development made a variety of serious problems such as economic exploitation, racial inequality, gentrification, social cleansing and climate crisis that affecting people's lives. The impact of social security cuts, market pressures and reduced funding for local authorities has forced the government to shift more responsibility back to the locals in the hope of solving problems through the community empowerment and democratic participation brought about by the Localism Act 2011. Its neighbourhood planning empowers residents to give communities the right to make protection and development policies through neighbourhood plans. On the other hand, neighbourhood development order allows communities to become autonomous democratic developers, bypassing the planning permission. At the same time, interventional, protective tools and legislations, such as community infrastructure levy, community assets transfer, site allocation etc. can help with neighbourhood planning in terms of financial, public assets, redevelopment, and more. However, by the following research. Firstly, a comparison of the total number of neighbourhood forums in London and other regions within England. Second, using machine learning and data analysis to investigate London's neighbourhood forums and neighbourhood plans from multiple dimensions, such as the degree of LPA willingness, the relationship between the success rate of the neighbourhood forum and social factors, and the preference of the neighbourhood planning vision. Third, selecting representative forums from different neighbourhood planning stages for more in-depth interviews and data gathering. We found that London's neighbourhood planning is unequal. On the one hand, the government has delegated services to local authorities and regional communities, but it is often just a cost shift rather than a real dispersion of power and fiscal autonomy. Existing neighbourhood forums take on too much responsibility when volunteering in the absence of adequate and sustainable financial and technical support. Different local planning authorities' attitudes towards neighbourhood plan and lengthy bureaucratic interactions with local officials prevent neighbourhood planning from getting real effective help. On the other hand, due to differences in education, income, social background and other factors, neighbourhood planning is not available to everyone. And a large number of people at the bottom have not yet participated. Even if someone were able to get involved, the consequence would be far from the same. Neighbourhood forums and its boundary are also determined by organisations with the financial resources and power, who can easily exclude other areas in the first place on the grounds that community goals are not aligned. At the same time, a successful community with the resources and capabilities can easily use a wide range of community infrastructure levy and technical means to research, analyse, and develop detailed projects for the community. However, the normal community can only submit empty plans and meaningless tautology, which allows external developers to still use the rich experience to continue to extract profits from the community. Therefore, to alleviate these situations, we design tools and workflows. Perhaps the most important objective is how to enable people from different backgrounds to fully understand individual rights and the forms of their application within the complex professional legal and planning framework, to be able to identify and assemble groups with the same needs and interests, to master the framework of neighbourhood planning and the ability to realise the collective vision within. As a consequence, we first developed a neighbourhood planning encyclopedia to categorise, organise, generalise and recompile all the complex information about neighbourhood planning. Through a more convenient and repeatable interactive interface, residents can clearly understand the detailed process within the neighbourhood planning framework, the corresponding application forms, technical support, laws, legislation, and other effective tools. At the same time, for minority groups, Finding legislation and tools to address demands may be far more effective than engaging in lengthy neighborhood plans. Consequently, they can be quickly located on the page of tools that may be applied through a simple questionnaire. For example, they may find that meanwhile use, a tool for short-term use of the underutilized space of the community, can meet their needs very well. Through the Neighbourhood Planning Encyclopedia, users can quickly understand the specific concepts and legal support of the tool, when it can be used, the ways and experiences of different groups of people, find relevant technical guidance and financial help, and at the same time can access similar legislation and tools to understand and tell the difference. For most non-professionals, the Neighbourhood Planning Encyclopedia we produced may still be a little technical and difficult to enjoy the process of participation. Hence, with an easier and more fun approach to neighbourhood planning for more age groups and backgrounds, we've developed a board game similar to Cold War, Plague Incorporated, Power Grid and Monopoly that can help you grab the real context. We have run several iterations where the rules of engagement, expansion and buying have changed. We have obtained feedback on every iteration on main issues to address playability and overall use. This is what we learned. The complex price mechanism and the continuous deduction of land points cause players to have too many things to remember, being difficult to form a memory for the policy and lack of timely feedback. Therefore, we use skill cards to replace them and use encyclopedias to help players understand. The developer player had a big advantage in the previous version. We used a new skill card system to balance the values of both sides. The overcomplicated rules cause players to spend much time understanding the rules before playing, and each game round takes more than an hour to play. Therefore, in the subsequent version, we simplified the instruction manual and regulations, and added a purchasable time bar in the UI interface. Above are all versions of the game, as well as tests and iterations. Next, we will show the latest version of our dummy city.
My name is Hamilton. I am an ordinary resident from Marylebone. I heard that there is a game can help me better understand the neighborhood planning and explore more community rights. So my friend and I plan to come together to play it.
Welcome to Dummy City. In front of you is your selected community. In terms of the board, we start with the scale and spatial distribution of the real land use attributes in Marylebone, allocate the urban space to the 4 main functional categories, redraw the classified sites and scale the 4 types of land use into a grid, and then remap them into a game board. For the pieces, we extracted different elements of real city buildings from the 4 types of land use, and rearranged them in a figurative way to create 4 types of buildings occupying different proportions. The current state is the initial state of new. When holding the model up, you can see that the 4 types of plots have different values. You and NPC or other players will play respectively as a nice resident in the community or an evil developer against each other. Each party will have a different initial capital effort point. You need to use as many effort points as possible to complete the ownership of different plots. The player with the highest total plot value wins. Then please choose the role you want to play. You have chosen the community. The next step will be to enter the tutorial of the game. The tutorial will default you to playing against NPCs. A game round is completed when both players have completed their personal round. At the beginning of each game round, the winner of the guessing game decides who goes first. We use Stage 1, Bid and Application. Stage 2, Filling up payment and documents. Stage 3, Settlement. To simplify the neighborhood planning and planning application process that residents and developers will face in real life, the next tutorial is for buying plots. We will use projection mapping to assist in the game, and players can follow the instructions to watch the required tutorial videos. By selecting the plot you want to get the ownership, and placing the effort point inside, then this plot immediately enters Stage 1. Now, You can try to buy a plot by following the instructions. After both players have completed all operations, this game round ends. And all plots on the game board will automatically progress to the next stage. In the following game round, if you confirm that you need this plot, you need to fulfill the rest of the required points. Please follow the instructions to make up the final payment for one of the plots. The NPC still did not take any action. At the end of this game round, all plots on the game board automatically progress to the next stage. In Stage 3 settlement, if the plot has been fulfilled enough effort points, you will complete the ownership. If not, the invested effort point will be refunded to you, and this plot will return to the state of new. So, you could own the highlighted plots on the board. In addition to developing yourself, you can undermine your opponent's developing plan by buying away their effort points. For you to better understand the gameplay, we provide a tutorial.
Oh, it turns out that I can only interfere with the developer's plots within the affecting zone of my ongoing and completed plots. And they used hand tracking technologies for interaction, so I just moved my hand across the board to see how far my plots could affect.
In addition to the basic gameplay introduced above, both sides have their own skill card set, which has the effect of helping their own development and undermine the development of the opponent. The effects of community skills all correspond to real-life regulations and tools that help communities develop. And the effects of developer skills all correspond to realistic development consequences that developers may have and the impact that behaviors have on communities. How to use your budget and skill cards wisely becomes the key to victory. All the primary teaching is over. You and your friends can start the actual battle. Community money is depleting fast, and community players are now down to 1 effort point, but you have a chance to get more effort points. You can watch the Encyclopedia of Section 106 to learn about different types of development projects that developers should hand over a certain amount of money to residents and local authorities for the development of community and local public infrastructure. And in our game, for each house plot completed by the developer, 2 effort points are required to be paid to the government as tax for public funds. You will have the possibility to draw a skill card to get this money.
I will try to draw a card. Wow, what a lucky boy! This community infrastructure levy card means I can get the funds turned in by the developer's house project. This money came so timely. It's very helpful to expand my community. Well, when we draw a skill card but don't know how to use it, we can directly watch a tutorial that shows the side of the interface.
If the developer has at least 2 business plots and also there are some community developments on this diagonal line, the developer can make it demolition.
He actually drew this card and demolished my community assets. It seems that developers has just as much power, and the gentrification of this bad development has forced us to move to the great determinants of my community.
2,000 years later.
Finally, it was me won the game. It was an exciting game. The game maker asked me which card I was impressed. Of course, it was Perfect Neighborhood Plan. It is so important that the community has the full support from the LPA to speed up the development of our community and help us achieve the Perfect Neighborhood Plan as soon as possible. Dear residents, you must have no idea what I learned this time at AA school. Let's see, it turns out we've always had so much power and tools to grow our community.
Well, I seem to have heard this meanwhile used, but I always thought it's too complicated for me to understand.
You guys can try scanning this QR code to find out more information. You see, the legislations and tools that have been simplified and re-edited by AA students are so easy to understand and interesting. You can find anything you need here, for instance, all relevant information about meanwhile use.
Really good. I finally figured out how it works.
Not only that, but you see, there is a lot of unused and misused space within our Marylebone neighborhood area.
Isn't that place next to Tom's home?
Oh, Yes.
This place seems to have been vacant for a long time because of the epidemic. Then, if we refer to the meanwhile use we just learned about, do we finally have a place to be the arts pop-up store that everyone has been planning?
Yes, that's a good idea.
You see, there are so many different types of space and potential land use in our community. Do you want to take a look at what else we can do?
In our next game iteration and long-term plan, there are three main tasks. First of all, in our previous presentation and the game, the developers have always been relatively evil characters in the process of neighborhood planning. Because we hope that through this game experience, players and audiences can more deeply understand the social impact and tragedies hidden behind the development, and learn how to deal with them. However, in real life, there are also great developers who work for the benefit of the community. Therefore, we consider adding third-party players in subsequent game versions that can help the community fight against evil developers, so that players can understand and learn the various abilities and potentials of developers from multiple dimensions. Secondly, the next iteration of the game is able to be customized by different local contexts. For example, in Leo Roman Road neighborhood area, each unique land use type and spatial form will greatly change the player's decision-making. At the same time, the rules section 106 will be significantly different from those in wealthy neighborhood areas like Marylebone. And the initial effort points for developers and communities will vary accordingly, etc. In addition, from a long-term perspective, we are also developing an online version of the game, hoping it will be able to function as a wider range of specific decision-making, data collection and user analysis for different local contexts. Finally, we will randomly trigger extreme climate and social events in each game round. For example, in extreme weather such as storming and floods, the rules of only green plots and their surrounding area will not be affected, and the difficulty of developing the remaining areas on the game board will be doubled. We aim to raise public awareness of the climate crisis and various social issues through those different random events in a more immersive engagement experience. We hope that more and more people like Hamilton and his friends will learn about neighborhood planning through our games and encyclopedias, master these tools which should belong to them in an engaging and easy approach, and truly develop the future of democratic communities. Thanks for watching.